As you can tell, I'm not Harvey, our chairman. Harvey is creaking a little bit and isn't able to be here tonight. He's possibly online, and so that may not have gone down very well. Welcome also to everyone online. We've got a full house in the online room as well. They can't, what can they see? They can see us, but they can't see you, unfortunately. But we have a nice crowd in the room, nice crowd online. I will just do the odd parish notice for Lammas, which is very straightforward. We're a society that champions London's heritage, built heritage, buried archaeology, history, all over the area of London and Middlesex, which is making a bit of a resurgence, is Middlesex. If you're not a member, then shame on you. Please do consider joining us. We have a new website, which is all very straightforward should you wish to become a member or renew your lapsed membership. We're bargain at 20 quid a year as well, so please do think about it, and that includes you at home. And without further ado, I'm delighted actually to be introducing Diane. Diane worked with us at English Heritage Historic England for a long time as effectively curator of the archaeology for large parts of Westminster and West London. Unfortunately for us, but very good for Parliament, chose to go to Parliament to work as the Archaeology Delivery Lead for the Renewal and Restoration Programme project. And it is a fantastic opportunity. Absolutely fascinating archaeology. Many of you will know that the area of central Westminster is rich in archaeology from the prehistoric period upwards to, well, we can make all the jokes I think we like about crumbling ruins in areas of Westminster. I can say that, you can't say that obviously. But it's wonderful to have Diane here tonight to be able to talk about what the plans are and what has been achieved to date. So I will stop talking and hand over and go back to the tech.
Thank you, Jane, and good evening. Thank you for inviting me here to speak to you this evening. I'm Diane Abrams. I'm the Archaeology Lead for the Houses of Parliament Restoration and Renewal Programme. So it's fantastic to share with you all the interim results of what we've been uncovering beneath and around the Palace of Westminster. It's one of the most historically significant sites in the UK. So we've just completed year 2 of a 3-year archaeological programme. This is a huge collaborative effort across the Delivery Authority, Parliament, stakeholders and partners, including MOLA, and by the end of 2027, there will be a fuller understanding of the site with the final report. So why is archaeology important for Parliament and for R&R? Well, the Palace of Westminster was once one of the most important medieval royal palaces, a principal residence from 1040 to 1530. Although the 1834 fire destroyed much of it, earlier structures and archaeological features survive within and beneath the Victorian building, which is nationally protected due to its historic and architectural significance. So our assessments and investigations help us understand more on the significance and survival of the pre-1834 palace, the wider medieval abbey and palace complex, earlier human activity on the site, and the construction and evolution of the Victorian building. So as we plan for the restoration and renewal of Parliament, these essential early investigations are deepening understanding of its past, informing its present, and are shaping its future. This early knowledge, it informs design and planning decisions. It feeds into digital modelling to guide future work. It reduces risk and speeds up consents. It also opens opportunities such as the potential to display historic structures or objects in future design, landscaping or exhibitions, helping create a long-term legacy and greater social value. This has already been demonstrated as last summer we hosted a wide range of visitors from our parliamentary community on site. We ran site tours, held 3 pop-up displays and even did some filming and interviews with media, press and trade outlets, some of which went international. So I hope to build on this, and it's great to come and speak to you today as well, and keep sharing news of our discoveries, ensuring archaeology at R&R is very much also an opportunity, and expand on our engagement programme in the coming years. So this infographic here highlights the key areas, 3 key areas completed in 2025. Victoria Tower Gardens, Old Palace Yard and Cromwell Green, plus a Thames foreshore survey. Speakers Green and Speakers Court were completed in 2024, and I'll just show you. So this is Speakers Green here, Speakers Court, and we hope to do Royal Court and Blackroads Garden this year and next. So across the programme, we're excavating 14 trial pits and drilling 10 geoarchaeological boreholes in areas where future construction works might have an impact. Every investigation, as you know, follows a written scheme of investigation, which in this case is also supported by an overarching research agenda for the Palace and conservation and archaeology framework, which was endorsed by Parliament. The framework includes digital models with ratings of significance from 1 to 5 star and potential survival mapped with mini assessments for each area that we've used to guide design for each area of the site. This builds upon other non-intrusive and intrusive survey work and research too. So now I'm going to take you through some of the highlights. So our earliest discoveries include over 60 flint flakes dating to the late Mesolithic or early Neolithic. So these were found less than a metre below Cromwell Green, on the top of in situ sand deposits which once formed part of Thorney Island, where the Abbey and Parliament now stand. Around 6,000 years ago, this was a small eyot surrounded by streams, ideal for hunting and fishing. Specialists identified lithic flakes and a scraper tool, revealing evidence of flint knapping and microburins from microlith making in the area and on this site. Some evidence of burning was also identified. But this shows long-term human use of the area and the importance of geoarchaeological sampling, which we're also undertaking across the site to develop deposit models for reconstructing this lost landscape. A borehole here confirmed the gravels exist at around 4 metres deep, and that's one of the higher areas of Thorney Island. So this just shows the trench with the in situ sand deposits. Residual Mesolithic flints have previously been discovered in the area at Cromwell Green during 1978, and also during the 1970s construction of an underground car park at New Palace Yard. But the interesting point about these flints is that they appear in situ on the top of the surviving sands. And further assessment will take place to confirm that. But it was really exciting to actually find these. So this slide just shows what the site would have looked like when it was Thorney Island, and this is a reconstruction from the late Iron Age period. And I'll just highlight there, that's Thorney Island. And you can just see Westminster Bridge, which would have been approximately in that position, and Lambeth Bridge there. So our site is actually closer to Westminster Bridge, but in between the two. In fact, this area here, just at the southern edge of Thorney Island, but that is where Victoria Tower Gardens is now. This is just an imagined prehistoric scene. It's not in London, but it's just to imagine the scene at what is now the site of UK Parliament around 6,000 years ago. The person here is adding microliths to a spear for fishing. So it's just to give you a little flavour of what it might have been like. But I'll now move on to the Old Palace. So this is a reconstruction drawing of the palace around 1530, which highlights how the Abbey, the palace and church once formed a single interconnected complex, now a World Heritage Site. And it's really important to just remember that as well. It includes Westminster Hall, St Stephen's, the cloisters, the Jewel Tower, and the inner courtyards and spaces of the medieval palace, including Old Palace Yard. Many of these spaces have had limited previous archaeological investigation and are a bit of a mystery, and so hold potential for undiscovered archaeology. You can also see in the drawing there's some passageways and stairs for jetties towards the river, but also directly to the abbey as well. But that would have been the case at that point. And if you remember back, the House of Commons actually did meet in the chapter house of the abbey during the medieval period as well. This map shows how the old palace buildings and law courts align differently to the Victorian building. So the Victorian building is black. So our trenches are in yellow, which you may be able to see, you might be able to see them online. Were placed to test whether pre-1834 parliamentary structures or medieval structures survived below. And that was one of the key objectives that we were asked to do by Historic England. And you can just see some trenches here, which I'll just point over here, in Old Palace Yard. There's two here as well. So you might have heard about this in Current Archaeology or British Archaeology in the news pieces, in those magazines. But one of our most significant discoveries last summer was uncovering a substantial surviving section of the medieval Lesser Hall in Old Palace Yard. The wall that you can see here is almost 2 metres wide, constructed of ragstone, green sand and chalk, all common materials of its time. The Lesser Hall, also known as the White Hall, was first documented in 1167 to 68. It likely stood on the site of Edward the Confessor's earlier palace. Over the centuries, it served as a royal dining hall, the Court of Chancery in the 1390s, the Court of Requests from 1516 to 1720s, and from 1801, the House of Lords. The medieval core survived the 1834 fire, and the structure was re-roofed and reused temporarily by the House of Commons until the new palace was underway. It did not fit with Charles Barry's new design for the palace, unfortunately, and was demolished down to the foundations we've now uncovered. So if you look closely there, you can see some red brick walls as well. So if I just point here, this is the inside of the building, and that's the outside of the building. And you can see the red brick walls attached to the western side of the building. Now, these actually relate to repairs. So the wall, the red brick wall here is a 17th century repair, but the other wall was an 18th, 19th century dividing wall for a cellar. And that cellar of that property belonged to John Bellamy. So he was the Commons deputy housekeeper who ran Bellamy's refreshment rooms. And anyone who's been to Parliament today, there is an actual staff restaurant at Parliament called Bellamy's today. So the name carries on. But a gold ornamental band, thought to be a decorative element, possibly from a piece of jewellery, or maybe from the rim of a cane, was found in the cellar backfill amongst the 19th century rubble from demolition of those buildings to the west of the Lesser Hall. The rubble also contained a range of late post-medieval finds, including pottery, clay pipe and glass. And Mola's specialists are undertaking further assessment of the gold band. Well, you can just see it here. Now, this slide makes it look quite big, but if you look at the scale, it's probably around that, really. So you can see as well, it has a really nice decorative beading on it. There's 3 lines of beading. There's no hallmark, but that was not compulsory before the 1920s. But a really nice find. These drawings from the Parliamentary Archives show the Lesser Hall after the 1834 fire. You can see clearance and repair works underway in the drawing to the left. And our trench corresponds closely to this area. just where the men are on the ramp. But these indicate the value of comparing the documentary material in the archive with the physical archaeology as it's found and recorded to build upon existing knowledge of the site. So I'm now going to tell you a story about the construction of the new palace. So stone carving on site for the new palace began with the laying of the foundation stone in 1840 at Speaker's House and continued to 1860 when Victoria Tower was completed. And that's the one with Big Ben. Anston limestone from quarries in South Yorkshire was brought down by red-sailed Humber sloops. In fact, sorry, Victoria Tower is not Big Ben. That's Elizabeth Tower. I'm getting my towers mixed up. But so when continued to 1860 when Victoria Tower was completed. Anston limestone from quarries in South Yorkshire was brought down by red-sailed Humber sloops and unloaded at today's Blackrod's Garden. And you can just see a crane in the background there. So the blocks were moved to stonemasons' sheds along the terrace, carved, and then lifted by steam winch onto the scaffolding and bonded to the brick structure. The carving created large amounts of stone waste, as you can imagine, and evidence shows it was swept up, loaded into carts, moved along the riverfront scaffolding, and likely tipped down a chute into the cofferdam below. So our excavations have recovered meters of this stone waste in Speaker's Gwain, giving us a rare insight into how the Victorian building site operated over 160 years ago. This image here shows the very substantial structure of the cofferdam that was created to drain the Thames so the new palace could be constructed on reclaimed land. During our archaeological investigations, parts of the sawn-off timber planks were recorded during a watching brief on a 9-metre deep borehole at Speaker's Gwain. More was retrieved during a watching brief during marine ground investigations in the River Thames. So we actually have the line of the cofferdam mapped from historic plans and from a bathymetric survey, which is used to uncover possible obstructions on the riverbed. And this is the trial pit at Speaker's Gwain. So at Speaker's Gwain, we uncovered layers of limestone waste alongside personal items from the workers. So parts of a 5-pint stoneware glazed marked jug, which you can just see on the bottom corner there. And it was marked with Geo Painter on it, from the Ship and Turtle Tavern, which was in Leadenhall. And it was run by its keeper, George Painter, in the 1840s. There was also a tobacco pipe bowl decorated with a Masonic motif found. And the maker's initials, TP, are moulded in relief on the side. In fact, a Masonic meeting house was actually stood above the tavern. So these offer a wonderful glimpse into the stonemasons and labourers working on the site. In fact, 9 clay pipe bowls and 1 mouthpiece dating to between the 18th and 19th centuries were recorded in the upper deposits of that trial pit, all manufactured in London. There was even a tiny dress item recovered from this part of the site, a copper alloy pin found at over 5 metres below ground level in a dumped alluvial layer. And that was actually retrieved when we took an auger sample through that layer, so it was quite a good find. Residual medieval stone, including Reigate and Caen work stone with chisel marks, possibly dumped after demolition during the renovations, as well as 19th century Anston stone wasters of the new palace were also found. And other finds included post-medieval glass and medieval and post-medieval pottery. So now let's turn to Victoria Tower Gardens. As you can see, we've been busy. So this photo was taken in 1875, before the river was embanked and the gardens created in around 1896. Hard to imagine now when you look at the picture there on the right. But Victoria Tower Gardens was still an industrial riverside area with working wharfs at that time. You can just see here the London First Edition OS map, which was published in 1879. And you can see the various wharfs and the names of those wharfs. I'll just read them out as well. There was Stone Wharf, Coal Wharfs, Bell Wharfs, and flour mills, cranes. There was a gas company wharf, and also Abingdon Wharf, closer to the palace. Just added this slide as well because it just reminds us of the changing lines of the waterfront of the Thames before the embankment and river wall was created. So the Thames foreshore and waterfront varied throughout that time. And this shows the lines of the waterfront in 1879 in green and 1746 in red. It just varies throughout. And much of the land that the eastern part of the Palace of Westminster is built on was reclaimed from the river multiple times from the medieval period onwards. Earlier historic maps show the Queen's Slaughterhouse and the Abbott's Mill here in the 1500s and 1600s, which is the area highlighted in red there. In the medieval period, the River Thames would have formed the main approach to the palace and the abbey precincts. Earlier still, the land at Victoria Tower Gardens was located in the River Thames or on marshland at the southern edge of Thorney Island, if you think back to that slide earlier. You can just note as well the open ground around the site during the late 16th and 17th century. So from an archaeological point of view, we expected a relatively high survival here due to this, but also the build-up of deposits above this for forming the gardens. So the team were here on site at Victoria Tower Gardens for around 7 weeks, and that included making sure the trial pit was safe and secure by shoring the trial pit as well to quite a depth. One of the objectives really was to recover a full sequence of the remains, as well as whether there were any pre-1834 structures visible on the palace site. But at Victoria Tower Gardens, we wanted to see if we could get through a full sequence. So the first few weeks revealed a late 19th century bedding layer for a garden path, shown on historic maps, with levelling deposits below, including a hard surface of brick rubble, which you can see in the middle. Below this, there was a cobbled surface from one of the historic wharfs, revealed below. And we know from looking at the historic maps that Fadden's 1813 map shows the area recorded was near Western Wharf and Abingdon Buildings, which becomes Abingdon Wharf, as you've seen in the earlier OS First Edition map. A series of dumped deposits lay below this, containing pottery glass, metalworking waste, clay pipes, and window lead. And then below this again, the team went deeper and got into the medieval layers. So below these layers, the team uncovered a possible east-west drainage ditch, which you can just see here. You can see the edge with the scale on the picture here, with traces of timber structural features nearby. Finds included tile, leather, animal bone, pottery, and a lovely 14th century decorated Westminster floor tile from the upper fill, as well as a discarded medieval stone mortar of Jurassic limestone from a gravel layer just overlying the ditch. You can just see there's one corner missing, but very good survival. So during the final weeks, the deeper layers contained oyster shell, animal bone, and significant leather finds, including shoe parts and a near-complete 14th century boot, plus metal objects, including parts of a set of shears. You can just see the shear in the picture there to the right. A thimble was also recovered, and a decorated lead badge with a flowering heart motif, possibly a love token. So the team excavated to nearly 6 metres, with sampling to just under 7 metres, to capture the full sequence. This revealed historic alluvium still, There was a fragment of a tile at the bottom of that as well. But the gravels here from our geoarchaeological boreholes are recorded at around 12 metres, so quite a depth. I'll just go on to some of the highlights from the finds. So this is the leather boot and one of the well-preserved soles of the shoe. So 66 fragments of leather, including footwear of a range of sizes from child to large adult, were recovered from the single trial pit. There was also some evidence of shoemaking waste as well, and a possible sword scabbard. So we could almost wear that today. It's good, well preserved. And this is the ornate lead badge in the shape of a flowering heart. Dates to the 14th, 15th century. The heart's surrounded by flowers. There's 4 flowers on its right side, and the remains of a pin were found on its reverse. This is the front. And these symbols were popular on brooches and pendants at that time. There was also a bone bead found, which possibly could be part of a rosary of the 13th, 14th century as well, and 192 fragments of animal bone as well. But of interest, and one that you might find interesting in terms of research in London as well, is one of the finds that we recovered from the Thames Foreshore survey. So Muller undertook a foreshore walkover survey and recording of the river wall, and one of these finds was a small Roman portable altarpiece. So there's not much Roman found in this area really, but this was quite a nice find because it's thought to have been blasted onto the foreshore, perhaps from Victoria Tower Gardens, so it may be part of the backfill. So during World War II, a German bomb hit the wall and breached it, and we think that this may have then fallen onto the foreshore, and then it was picked up recently. It's thought to have been reused in the 19th century as well due to markings. But it's interesting because there is a theory about a Roman river crossing in Westminster, perhaps in the vicinity of Westminster Bridge. So it would be good to undertake a bit more assessment and research of this piece and also of the Roman river crossing as well. In fact, the foreshore survey has actually revealed significant erosion on the foreshore over a 10-year period. So lots of new in-situ timber remains relating to drainage management, moorings and use of the foreshore have also been uncovered and recorded. And you can see this is where the breach to the wall took place. You can also maybe notice a pillbox up there. It's not there now, but it was there. And we've also got documentary evidence of its repairs, temporary repairs as well as the permanent repairs. So I hope that's given you a real sense of the extraordinary stories emerging from our archaeological survey work. We're at quite an early stage still, but we've obviously gathered quite a lot of new information, as well as building on the existing information as well on the site. So it's really quite exciting, actually. But as we plan for the restoration and renewal of Parliament, these essential early investigations are deepening understanding of its past, informing its present, and shaping its future. So we look forward to continuing these surveys and sharing more of these discoveries through future engagement and outreach. Thank you very much.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Diane. Personally, I'm very excited about the portable Roman altar. We know there was a small, what's been referred to as a satellite Roman settlement on Thorney Island. So very exciting to have something that would suggest there's a bit of worship going on. Do we have any questions, please, from Diane? We're checking at home as well. We've got 40 people in the house at home. But do we have any questions here? Yes.
Just ask a question. I mean, you've laid out which areas you're investigating. Are you doing any actual investigating into where the actual Victorian building is, so what they built over, or is that going to be later when they ever eventually get to the stage that they're going to actually renovate? So is that just a later project?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of information known already about the Victorian building, but there are surveys planned which relate to the structure of the building and trying to assess the structure of the building as well. And as part of that, there will obviously be quite a lot of research undertaken into the Victorian Palace as well. So it is ongoing at the moment, but it's still quite an early stage. Yeah.
Some of the earlier work, see what they built over, or do you think they always thought that they completely swept away the old?
Well,
whatever the medieval order?
so we know that there are some medieval survivals. So we've got Westminster Hall.
Yes.
We've also got the cloisters as well. There's the St Mary's Undercroft, which was St Stephen's Chapel. The foundations are medieval, even though the chapel is Victorian in terms of its decoration. And also Westminster Hall itself, the fabric of Westminster Hall is medieval, below the barry fabric, and it still survives. We've seen evidence of that underneath the stairs of the hall, for example. So yeah, it's a good question, and I should have mentioned that earlier. So.
Thanks very much, really interesting. You touched a little bit on outreach, but I just was keen to understand a little bit more. Is this something that MPs are actually are they interested in this, and what is the engagement been with MPs?
Yeah, so we've had quite a bit of interest from members and peers as well. So we have had a number of tours. Certainly last summer when Victoria Tower Gardens was on, we offered some tours for members and peers to sign up through Parliament. And we had probably like 15, 16 for one of those, with some pop-up exhibitions as well. We've also had a number of other pop-up exhibitions with the finds displayed. And we've had a number of members and peers and also staff as well, because there's a lot of staff who work at Parliament who were able to sign up and come and see the finds. And there's lots of interest there as well. And it's been promoted, the engagement side has been promoted at Programme Board as well, which includes a number of members on there. Yeah.
Has there been much Roman material recovered so far?
We haven't had any Roman, apart from the portable Roman altarpiece, which is why it was so interesting, really. And that was obviously found, I guess, out of context because it was on the foreshore. And it probably was part of the backfill of the Victoria Tower Gardens as it was built up and formed. So it might have come from elsewhere, but probably within the vicinity. There hasn't been too much because that area would have been quite marshy at that time. There was a stream found, a former Paleo Channel type stream in Cromwell Green, which was found to be backfilled in the Saxon period, but maybe that could be of Roman origin, but still needs a little bit more assessment, really, of that.
Do we have any questions online?
Has there been the opportunity within this program to kind of trial new technologies or innovative ways of working?
Yeah.
Did everyone hear that question from the tech cave? The question was whether the team have been able to trial any new and innovative technologies during the programme.
It's certainly something that we want to do in future as well. We have got a building information model, which we will be adding the results of the surveys to. We've got the shape files, so we're going to look at how we can add those to the BIM model, and that will help to identify clashes in future, but also give us more information digitally as well. We also have, as part of the Conservation and Archaeology framework, some digital models of significance and survival, and we will be updating those as well to help guide the design as it moves forward as well. We've done some photogrammetry on historic building recording for the river wall, and also as we move into the actual building and the structural surveys itself, there will be an opportunity there to add some innovations in terms of digital recording as well. But yeah, very good question. Thanks.
Any more questions? Sylvia?
Not really a question, more of a comment following on from the last one. Obviously, as part of work, I came and visited and saw some of this, which was really, really impressive to see. Outside of the archaeological and environmental discoveries, the thing that struck me and sort of stayed with me was the fact that you managed to do all of this using shuttering that was entirely made of wood. I'm so used to going to sites where boxes are dropped and sheets of metal are put in, and they are very safe and very efficient. They do look rather ugly. I'm impressed that you've managed to do those deep, deep, deep test pits using something which kind of would have been available to Barry. So just to say that was a really interesting side on visiting the site.
Yeah, I'll pass that back to the team. Thanks, Sylvia.
Doing it the Victorian way. Yeah.
Yes, I was just curious, so before it was the House of Parliament, what was actually on the site?
Right, so it was so we had Edward the Confessor's Hall, which probably was a timber hall, Westminster Hall, and was part of the medieval palace the medieval palace. So it was a medieval palace, which would have been the principal royal residence at that time, or at least it became the principal royal residence. It was one of three medieval palaces at that time, royal palaces. So that's what was on the site previously, and that's what we do expect to find remnants of, perhaps in Old Palace Yard. From Edward the Confessor's was 11th century. The Lesser Hall was 12th century. The Westminster Hall dates to around the same time, but it has a 14th century roof for anyone who's been in there. So lots and lots of history there, really, and that's why Parliament is actually sited there today. So it's really important to remember that as well.
One more. What most surprised you in your excavations?
I think, well, I guess the prehistoric in situ sands, I think in Cromwell Green, with the 60 flints in one location. Very often you get flints on site, quite scattered, but these were concentrated in one location, which looked to be right on top of the in situ sands for Thorney Island. And that, for me, it just highlights that longevity of human activity on the site way back 6,000 years. So I think that's really quite fantastic, as well as the Lesser Hall, which was really exciting in August last year.
Just going back to what you were saying earlier about the reclaimed land, I know that further upstream, Pimlico is built on various bits of excavations taken from St Catherine's docks and brought upstream. Do you have any evidence of what the reclamation process was for the building of Barry's Parliament?
For Barry's Parliament? They obviously would have demolished quite a lot of the medieval structures that had not survived the fire, I guess. And previous to that, there was an earlier fire as well in 1512, before Henry VIII moved to Whitehall Palace, and they did take quite a lot of the stone with them as well. So in terms of the reclamation, it probably was partly it might contain some of the demolition materials from the medieval palace, for the Barry's reclamation, and we know that from some of the fill, because the palace was actually, Barry's palace was built on a raft, and we know that some of the fill above the raft contains some finds, so we're interested in that to see if it can highlight whether there are whether there's any stonework, for example, that, like I mentioned at Speaker's Green, we had some medieval pieces of stone which had been probably dumped there during the demolition of the palace when the new palace was being constructed.
Right. I think we are done then for questions. questions. Oh, sorry, I'll come and talk to the microphone. Thank you very much for those questions. So again, I'll just say thank you for coming to the final lecture of the season. At this point, it would be very appropriate to thank Catherine for her work in putting the season together. So if we can thank Catherine. And if we can also thank Karen and her long-suffering husband Rob, who comes and supports all of these lectures and the membership generally for all her work putting together the lecture season in support of Catherine. That would also be wonderful. Thank you, Karen. The lecture season for the 26-27 series is almost complete. Please keep an eye on our new and shiny website for details of that. Please also keep an eye on our website for news and information and the announcement of some Lammas Lates, which will run over the summer. So keep an eye out for that. I've mentioned become a member if you're not already. And so I'd like to thank you all for coming. Thank you online, everyone. Oh, you're up there somewhere. And finally, to thank Diane, please, for a really interesting lecture. And hopefully we'll be able to invite you back in a few years' time to update us on what happens from here on in. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming.